One of the most important things about basting is making sure that your pieces are basted nice, tight, smooth, and that you have nice, crisp, clean edges. This will help you get everything lined up nice and perfectly when you go to put it all together. So the first step is to use a little bit of glue and secure your paper onto your fabric. If I have something that a really specific fussy cut or that I'm trying to line up really precisely, I will use a window or I will use my light box to help me make sure that I get the placement just right. So once I have that set, I will go ahead and start basting. I like to use the Soline glue pen because it just gives me a nice small edge to work with, especially on these tiny little pieces. So I'll go ahead and run a little line of glue on my piece. It's not all the way at the edge of the paper, it's maybe about a 1/16 in, so that gives me some flexibility when I'm stitching. And then I go ahead and I pick it up and I use my finger to crease it really hard against the edge of the paper. I do a lot of picking up and putting down and picking up and putting down when I'm basting because I like to make sure everything's nice and tight and smooth. I do extend my glue out to the edges of my fabric just to help hold it. Now because this piece is so tiny, I started with this so that y'all could see. Your fabric is going to overlap a little bit, and that's not a big deal. It'll come apart later. So now when it gets to the last two seams, before I glue baste, I'll just give it a finger press just to kind of get an idea of where that fold is going to be. And then once I can see it, I'll go ahead and do the same thing with my glue. Not all the way on the fold, just a little bit in. I'm pretty liberal with my glue application because I like things to stick. When it comes to the corners, sometimes I'll use a nail, kind of stick it in there, make sure I can really get that point tight. These kind of little spots are what's important. If your fabric is loose or sloppy around these kind of areas, when you go to put it all together, that's where you're going to have some trouble getting some accuracy lining all your points up. But if everything here is nice and tight and clean, it's going to come together really nicely. Now all of these templates for this pattern are 1/4 inch. A lot of EPP patterns will have a 3/8 inch seam allowance, but because these pieces are so small, it is 1/4 inch. Now on something like this tiny little body, 1/4 inch is still a lot. So you can certainly trim some of this off without any problems. So again, I've got this point, get my thumb in there, really crease that nice and tight, finger press it, and then sometimes I'll also go ahead, I always have my little mini iron handy, and I'll give it a little press. Now if I see that something's kind of starting to come up, I'll go ahead and I'll add more glue, maybe a little bit under here. But overall, I think this is pretty good. My points are nice and sharp, my fabric is nice and taut, smooth, all ready to go. Okay, so now I'm going to do a slightly larger piece. This is one of the B pieces for the butterfly wings. I've already gone ahead and attached my paper to the fabric with just a little bit of glue. Now on a piece like this with this long pointy edge, I really want to make sure that I can get this tight, that my fabric doesn't shift around too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some more glue to the paper to really secure it nice and tight to the fabric so that when I go ahead to baste these edges, nothing's going to shift on me. And now my process is just going to be the same. Now with larger pieces like this, sometimes you can do 2 edges at once if you want to. But for now I'm just going to start here. I have my little line of glue. Again, I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to press this nice and tight. I'm going to repeat. Here. Again, I'm taking my glue out into the fabric. Now when I get to this corner, I'm just going to be really careful that I'm not pulling my fabric around or trying to shift it, making sure it doesn't shift too much. Now here I'm going over the fabric that's already basted. I always close my glue pen just out of habit, kind of like my parents always made me shut the lights off all the time when I left a room growing up, so it's just sort of ingrained in me. I don't know if it matters. So again, on this little corner, kind of get my nail, my thumbnail in there, really find the point of that paper and make sure that I'm basting this, not where the fabric wants to go, but where the paper actually ends. Okay, and so this is still just a tad bit loose. I might go ahead and stick a little bit more glue under there just because I really like everything to be nice and secure when I go to sew it all together. Then I just have one more edge here. I always use the blue glue. I've never tried the pink one, but I'm happy with the blue glue. Okay, and again, same thing with this corner. Just really gonna kind of tuck it down inside with my nail, fold it nice and tight, make sure everything is smooth. I'm gonna go ahead and just give it a little press. And it's all set. Nice, tight corners. It's gonna be really easy to get it all put together nice and accurately.